Adventure across borders. Walang pinipili ang adventure, regardless kung gamit mo ay scooter man or isang dambuhalang ATV bike. The most important thing is that you are having the time of your life and a place where you can find your adventure. Buti na lang at tayo ay nakatira sa isang bansa na yari sa maraming isla kung saan marami tayong adventure na pwedeng mapuntahan. Ang Pilipinas ay binabalot ng maraming bayan, kagubatan, kabundukan, may kalsada at walang kalsada, wherein the dual sport is the most preferred motorcycle for those who live in the countryside. But the problem with dual sport is that it is too tall for a normal Asian height, expensive and difficult to use for someone who live in a busy metro city. But there is one solution for it. Enter the Honda XRM. Ang panlasa natin sa kultura, musika, pelikula, at disenyo ng motor ay nagbago sa loob ng ilang taon. Pero ang pagtingin natin sa XRM ay kailanman hindi nagbago. You see, for nearly 2 decades, the XRM has beaten the sales of bigger and more powerful dual sport motorcycle, reaching 1.4 million units sold. As with this kind of motorcycle, you can get the easy-to-use character of a scooter and the rugged capabilities of a dual sport. Kahit saang sulok ng mundo ka pumunta, dito sa Pilipinas mo lang makikita ang XRM as it is not available on foreign shores for some reason. But either way, sa sobrang laki ng kinita ng Honda XRM, I reckon dito siguro kinuha ang puhunan to develop the Africa Twin. The XRM is not alone in its class, but it owns it. Dahil wala itong major competition sa market maliban sa mga ilang Chinese brands gaya ng Rusi at Kiway. The XRM is near perfect at dahil wala itong kakompetisyon, Honda did not bother to change how it looks and how it works. Honda kept building the same tried and tested motorcycle since 2002 and only gave it a facelift, rebored to 124cc, and added fuel injection, and that's about it. The only real problem of the XRM is pretty much itself, as it failed to innovate to become something even more powerful or capable. I mean, what's the rush? It really does not have any major competition to crush. Well, that is until now. This is the Raider J115 crossover. This is Suzuki's answer to rival the long-reigning dynasty of the XRM. Designed and engineered in Japan, then mass-produced in Calamba, Laguna to fill the local demand for affordable yet capable two-wheel transportation, this Underbone is designed specifically for the local market. But if demand goes up, Suzuki intends to sell it across the Southeast Asian region. So I immediately fell in love with this bike because I see a potential to turn this to a lightweight enduro. So I decided to sell my Yamaha Aerox and get this one instead. So technically it's like downgrading, right? Well, not entirely, because for me this is upgrading to a different level of fun. because this bike has a different purpose than the sports scooter. Ika nga, wag panay banking. Subukan mo rin maglaro sa off-road at mag-hooligan riding. The crossover is based on the standard Raider JFI, but I would simply like to call it as the Raider X, as X means it's dirt-worthy than the standard version. 2 dekada na sa Pilipinas ang XRM, kaya hindi basta-basta para gumawa ng motor at labanan ito. So Suzuki Philippines called the main headquarters in Suzuki, Japan to help them design and engineer a K-Dual Suppotsu to rival this XRM. But using the already existing platform of the Raider J to save R&D costs. And the Japanese engineers efficiently came up with this. Sa unang tingin, magugulat ka na kahawig ito ng XRM. At normal lang ang ganong reaksyon lalo't nasanay na tayo sa design ng XRM. But take a closer look, and you would see that the Raider X is different, as it borrowed the design cue of the formidable RMZ Enduro. See the spoke wheels, see the bodywork and color, see the fork boots and fender peak, see the RMZ in a commuter-wise level. Para sa mga mahihilig sa lightweight dual sport, you would immediately see the potential of this bike. Para sa mahihilig sa adventure bikes gaya ko, may pagkahawig ito sa V-Strom dahil sa color scheme and bodywork nito. Switchgear quality is nice and above average. Hindi tinipid katulad sa lumang switchgear ng XRM. Going over the bodywork of the Raider X, and it feels solid as well. Makapal at maganda ang quality ng plastic na ginamit dito. As a matter of fact, the Raider X uses the same plastic as the RMZ. Suzuki Japan sends the plastic materials here in the Philippines, which why it feels premium and solid. Hindi tinipid despite having an affordable price tag. Sulit. Power-wise, parehas ang makina nito sa standard Raider JFI. It's the 113cc fuel-injected air-cooled single-cam 2-valve short-stroke engine producing 9.1 horsepower at 7,500 RPM and 9 Nm of torque at 6,500 RPM, governed by a 4-speed rotary gearbox that resembles a DCT automatic at some point. The dashboard is quite simple and straightforward, but at least it looks clean and proper for the price that you pay for it. You have an analog speedometer, fuel gauge, turn signal indicator, engine check for the fuel sensor, top gear and neutral indicator, and that's about it. Fire up the engine and you'd be surprised that this thumper does not sound like a 113cc. Kahit na napakaliit ang elbow nito, tipong mas malaki pa ang hotdog na mabibili mo sa tindahan. Tinono ng Suzuki engineers ang exhaust ng Raider X to sound more brutish, katulad ng Raider R150, and that's a good thing kesa hayaan nila ito magtunog lata. Napaka-refine ng makina na ito dahil mababa lang ang vibration and noise levels. Drop the hammer and you would feel the strong torque at the lower RPM of this tiny short-stroke engine. power band is mostly tuned for the low and mid-range, and that's a good thing dahil hatak ang kailangan mo sa ganitong uri ng motor, lalo't gagamitin mo ito most of the time sa stop-and-go traffic scenario sa city ride, if not sa light off-road. Kapag bumili ka ng ganitong uri ng 2-in-1 na motor, para ka na rin bumili ng scooter dahil piga ka lang ng piga ng silinyador. But you can still manually change the gear without the need of a clutch lever. Dahil dyan mas focus ka sa kalsada, mas focus ka sa motor, mas focus ka sa handling na pwede mong magawa sa motor na ito. But I wish Suzuki made the full clutch variant. 113cc might sound too small, but you will need to consider the Raider X curb weight of 98 kilograms na may langis at 4-liter gas na sa fuel tank. For some reason, Suzuki engineers managed to keep the weight at bay as the XRM's dry weight is around 97 kilograms na wala pang langis at gas. So expect mo na mas mabigat ang XRM. Meaning to say, mas magaan ang Raider X, which means this will improve the overall performance of the bike. And it shows, as it has better acceleration from 0 to 60, better braking, better fuel consumption, mas magiging madali itong gamitin sa heavy city traffic or sa unpaved roads sa probinsya. So performance-wise, mas malakas ang Raider X pagdating sa arangkada dahil mas magaan ito. So yun na ba ang pinagmamalaki ng Suzuki laban sa subok at pulido na XRM? Well, maraming hindi nakakapansin ito at napaka-uncommon nito para sa isang underbone na motor. The Raider X has a large 31mm front fork. Yes, a larger fork size compare sa dildo forks ng XRM, kung saan mas kakayanin nito ang pressure sa uneven roads, broken roads, unpaved roads at off-road. At ito ang pinaka-advantage ng Raider X. Stock pa lang, capable na. Wala pang papel ang Raider X ko kaya hindi pa natin ito matadala sa malalayong lugar at mag-trail riding sa Rizal para masubukan ang suspension nito. Kaya sa part 2 na lang. So the only way to test the suspension of the Raider X is to simply ride it na parang walang pakialam sa basag na kalsada at speed bumps. Surprisingly, it absorbs all the pressure that I applied to it, all thanks to the large diameter forks and lightweight body, as the Raider X suspension performs with flying colors as I expected. Karamihan sa mga mahal na mga underbone na motor or scooter na mabibili mo ay maglalagotok agad ang forks kapag nabigla sa humps. Pero ito kaya netong lusubin ang anumang lubak na madadaanan mo sa napakakinis nating kalsada. Sa sobrang daling gamitin ng Raider X, you can do power slides. ...180-degree turns, small wheelies, pretty much everything that you can do on a dual sport or a supermoto. You can do it on the Raider X. At hindi ka mag-aalala masyado kung magkakamali ka dahil madaling i-correct ang movement ng motor sa sobrang gaan. Matibay ang mas malaking front forks kaya yakang-yaka ang bagsak. And speaking of lightness, the bike is easy to pick up just in case you drop it. It's so light I can do it with one hand. Despite under the pressure from the broken roads, the bike is comfortable with its upright riding stance and low seat height. It has a wider handlebar to increase leverage when turning. Napakadaling gamitin ng motor na ito dahil magaan at madaling i-correct ang posisyon mo kapag dumadaan ng mabilis sa unpaved roads. I immediately installed an aluminum handguard to protect my hands and the bike just in case na matumba ito. And most likely madalas matutumba ito kapag nilalaro mo sa off-road. And to increase comfort, I added soft grips to decrease some of the pressure on my hands. Yes, mas maliit ang makina ng Raider X and produces slightly less horsepower than the XRM, wherein it begins to lose power above 80 km per hour. Pero napakaliit lang ng diferensya para maramdaman ito. To compensate, Suzuki gave it a 37 rear sprocket compared sa XRM's 38. Dahil 113cc lang ito at para makisabayan pa rin pagdating sa duluhan at maabot ang top speed around 100 km per hour, which depends on your weight and road condition. But for me, top speed is nothing more than a number, lalo't 113cc lang ang motor na ito. I wished Suzuki used a bigger rear sprocket to make the Raider X pull like a 150 and make wheelies more possible. and make it even more capable on unpaved roads as the stock tires works perfectly fine. I really wished Suzuki pushed the bike further with the specs. You know, the oil-head 147cc twin-cam engine from the Raider R150, monoshock rear, and a V-Strom XT bodywork. I really wish this was the first 150cc class adventure bike to be offered by a major manufacturer. And if it was, it would have been quite a sight. Pero mukhang inuna muna nilang basagin ang long-reigning dynasty ng Honda XRM, and this is quite a contender despite having a smaller engine. Unang tingin ko pa lang sa Raider X, nakita ko kagad ang potential nito maging lightweight mini adventure or enduro bike dahil sa magandang suspension setup nito. Mas mataas na ground clearance at mas magaan ito kung saan pwede mo itong idaan sa anumang kalsada at madali itong buhatin just in case that you'd get stuck sa muddy trail. Or you can transform this bike easily to a supermoto by swapping the rubber with the more sticky road tires as the suspension is stiff enough to hold the bike when cornering hard. Isipin mo, 64,000 pesos lang ang motor na ito. Pero pwede mo itong gawing ADV bike, enduro, supermoto, street naked, etc. You see, hindi mo kailangan ng malaking motor para ma-enjoy ang pagmumotor. You simply need to know what bike makes you happy. And for me, going off-road makes the ride even more fun, and that makes me happy. And to do it easily and effortlessly for such light bike makes it even more enjoyable. When Suzuki said adventure across borders, sinasabi nila na pwede mong dalhin ang motor na ito kahit saan sulok man ng Pilipinas. But for me, para sa karakter ng motor na ito, I think adventure across borders means riding this bike without limitations, as it can be anything you want.